I don't mind that too much. I quite like it. It's just when it gets to blanket proportions and covers the whole pond, that's when it's not so good. But because the pond is underneath these two sycamore trees, over the years,
leaves have fallen into the water and the level of silt and leaf mould, as it were, that's built up underwater is getting pretty high. That's not helping with the oxygenation of this pond. So what we need to do is clear some of that out. But there is the oxygenating weed in here, which is a real help. The water's quite clear, it's not particularly brackish. A little bit of cleaning out, then we'll restock it with some new plants.
As can any weeds that you don't want. And there are also chemicals to keep the water pure, but that's not the idea really. We really want to do that in a natural way if we can, just by introducing oxygen or the oxygenating weed. Now, all this stuff, once it's out, the oxygenating weed will go back, but all the stuff that was at the bottom of the pond,
all the sycamore leaves, they can see them then weed goes back and we just generally clean it up. And quite a lot of couch grass has got in there somehow. I don't quite know how that's got in. And that even likes the water. You can see its white roots sticking out there. Its roots sticking out there. Its roots sticking out there. Roots sticking out there. Roots sticking out there.
That's
been tangled up with the oxygenating weed, and its green shoots have been poking up over the top. So the pond is lined, it's got a beautiful liner in it, and it seems to be holding the water pretty well, but there is no pump. Mark Bernzi är det bara vi så when you hit is in a and it seems to be holding the water pretty well, but there is no pump in this pond. And now that I've stirred up the depths and got all this silt and all this compost, as it were, moving around, it's gone quite cloudy. But that will settle down pretty soon. And if we don't want a pond, and this pond is quite far away from the house, and we can tell quite a serious means of getting underground wires sorted out from the mains electricity point. If you don't want a pump, you don't have to have one. It doesn't really matter. As long as you're prepared to put in 5 minutes here and there, cleaning the worst, the weed off, and making sure the plants that you've got are happy and are organised well enough that they're not falling over into the corners, not tipping over, and you're not too badly overhung by trees too much. And generally, you can manage it without the use of a pump or a filter, as long as
you don't want completely crystal clear water. But as a fail-safe,
this oxygenating weed does the job really well.
Next port of call is the garden centre to see what sort of plants are available to restock the pond.
Now to stock our little pond at home, obviously we come to the garden company, the Burford Garden Company, where there's a very good
Selection of plants.
and you need to get down to your local garden centre where there's always something to choose from.
Very good range here. I picked out a number of different types which I think will suit our little pond well. Obviously the favourite is the water lily. A beautiful plant, dies dry
Pretty much in the winter.
through the summer, lovely floating.
Pads and also lovely different colour flowers and also it's a very
A great many other,
As we know them, are actually what we call edge plants or marginal plants. Like, for example, this purple loosestrife, Lythrum salicaria.
Now this is a native
wildflower of this country. It has lovely, tall purple spires in the summer when it's in flower, and it gets quite big, sort of waist height, even up to the chest. It's a beautiful one, but it likes, as we can see, it likes to be partially submerged. It doesn't really want its crown. It doesn't really want its crown. If that happens, in the winter, say in the water meadow, in the winter, say in the water meadow, which is its native habitat, it's not going to be the end of the world. But around your pond, you want the crown, which is the surface of the plant, sticking out of the water, but the roots are happy in the water. Beautiful plant, very good insect attractant too. Another very impressive water plant, Lycicelia fulgens. Red spires this time, quite like Lobelia cardinalis, herbaceous perennial that you see a lot of in gardens. Fulgens quite similar, very striking plant. Also a marginal. Now, I think it's worth having some evergreens too. Both of those will pretty much die down. Both of those will pretty much die down in the winter. For those will pretty much die down in the winter. For those will pretty much die down in the winter. For those will pretty much die down in the winter. For those will pretty much die down in the winter. For those will pretty much die down in the winter. For those will pretty much die down in the winter. For those will pretty much die down in the winter. For those. Die down
in the winter. Both of those will pretty much die down in the winter. Both of those will pretty much die down in the winter. As will the water to a certain extent. But this sedge, this will pretty much hold shape and form a lot of its ferns.
You get the lovely sedge-type flowers at the top. Again, it's a marginal plant. In its sort of normal area, the water meadow, if it gets submerged, a bit like the loosestrife, it won't mind if it's in a floodplain, but really, through the best part of the season, the summer, it likes Now, we've already got some irises at home, but the yellow flag iris is another classic. You might want a bigger edge plant like a gun. Another classic. You might want another classic. Yes, classic. Yes, classic. Classic. You might want a bigger edge plant like a gunner with its big spiky stems, huge great leaves. But there's a wealth to choose from. It's just a hand. Classic. You might want a bigger edge plant like a gunnerer with its big spiky stems, huge great leaves. But there's a wealth to choose from. It's just a hand.
Having looked at plants that grow in the water, it's not grow in the water. 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 It's not grow in the water.
Classic. You might want a bigger edge
Grow in the water. It's not grow in the water. It's not grow in the water. It's not grow in the water.
Classic. You might
Grow in the water. It's not grow in the water. It's not grow in the water. It's not grow
classic. You might want a bigger edge.
in the water. It's not grow in the water. It's not grow in the water. It's not grow in the water.
Classic. You might want
Grow in the water. It's not grow in the water. It's not grow in the water. It's now time to look at ones that inhabit the edge.
And don't like their feet quite so wet.
more marginal plants here. Ferns, great, and also everybody's classic. You might want a bigger edge plant like a gun.
It's now in the water. It's now in the water. It's now time to look at ones that inhabit the edge and don't like their feet quite so wet.
More marginal plants here. Ferns, great. Great, classic. You might want a great, and all classic. You might great, and also everybody's favourite, the hosta. Classic. You might great, and also everybody's great, and also everybody's great, and also everybody's great, and also everybody's favourite, the hosta. Now, one of the reasons that these plants are so good as edge plants is that they cover up
The edge of the pond.
Now the chances are you're going to have a liner of some description, or even a plastic pond outline itself. Not attractive, it's not in the water. Great, and also classic. You might great, and also great, and also classic. You might want a bit great, and also what is favourite, the hosta. Classic. You might want a classic. You might want a great, and also what is favourite, the hosta. Now, one of the reasons not attractive is this one. Not attractive is this one. Not attractive is this one. Not attractive. 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 Pebbles, but it's much better to cover it with plants if you can. And what these two both do is they cover the area. Lovely, wide, spreading, together, beautiful, smooth, creating a lovely edge of pond. Classic.
It's not in the water.
It's now time to put the ones that inhabit the edge. Don't like their feet quite so wet.
Here, this edge is out of the air.
You'll have to.
But
Basis. Put the pond in, let it settle. Bring it down. Bring it off. A foot. Off. A foot. And off. Off. A foot. Off. A foot. Off. A foot. Foot. Oh, full. Things to settle. Before anything is done.
On permanent basis. put the pond in,
allow it to settle, and then and only then can you place stones around it or earth around it.
and build it up and make space for your plants or whatever, pumps 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 or whatever ornamentation or decoration you're going to use. So the next option beyond the fitted mould
is of course the beautiful liner, another byproduct of the petrochemical industry, so not great for the carbon footprint, but you can fit it right round the size of your pond, let it overlap or not, should you choose, just cut it out. So it saves the rigidity, gives you much more flexibility, and then you can plant around it, you can even plant through it. But you must make sure when you're doing it that you don't have sharp rocks in the bottom of it that might puncture it, because that way you're going to lose all the water very quickly, and the whole thing will have to be taken out and started again. So you've got two... The whole thing will have to be taken out and started again. Taken out and started again. So you've got two very, very good options. You got two very, very good options. You got two very, very good options. Classic, great, classic, great.
Grow in the water. It's not grow in the water. It's not grow in the water. Grow in the water. Like
And seasons out of the air.
you'll have to
Built into it up. So the next round can play all the clay. Best stuff down to have a lot of feet. Is the sauce. This is and you mold it in this, which is the next slightly nice, lovely. The place happening. I can. The hot hover is the sun.
grow in the water. It's not 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 grow in the water. It's now time to look at the ones that inhabit the edge and don't like their feet quite so wet.
More marginal plants here. Ferns, great, and also ferns, ferns, great, ferns, great, great, and also ferns, great, great, classic, great, classic, great.
Grow in the water. It's not grow in the water. It's not grow in the water. It's now time to look at the ones that inhabit the edge and don't like their feet quite so wet.
More marginal plants here. Ferns, great, and also everybody's favourite, the hosta. Now, one of the reasons that these plants are so good as edge plants is that they cover up
the edge of the pond. Now the chances are you're going to have a liner of some description or even a plastic pond outline itself. Not attractive. You could cover it with pebbles, but it's much better to cover it with plants if you can. And what these two both do is they cover the area. Lovely, wide, spreading foliage. Together, beautiful, smooth and crinkled, creating a lovely edge of pond effect. The dry zinc then proceeds to see what you have on the bottom and use
Fresh.
do this material to bring back you connected plant bubble. And a good of course you can only use the water. This is come to doesn't really they could really even don't on the it's not. That's right here. You could go with it beautiful. Much more of a soft edge to it, and I think through the summer there'll be lots of colour, very easy to manage. As long as the rain keeps up, 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 we don't have to add too much water from perhaps the water butt, then it should be happy and the plants will grow away beautifully.
More elaborate ponds take more management. I went to the Cotswolds to look at a garden that boasts 2 ponds in varying stages of development.
The construction of this pond has only just been finished, and already it's really reaping magnificent rewards. I love the shape of it, this teardrop. I love the way it's planted around the outside with the irises, the carry, the loosestrife. The liner, which keeps the water in, is held in place by the bricks around the outside, up to which the soil has been allowed to come and the planting is in that soil. But what's nice about it is that there's no important filtration system. There's just a pump, which is the fountain. There's one overflow. The oxygenating is done by the oxygenating weed. And already that's allowed all the stuff, all the soil and bits and pieces to build up at the bottom of the pond. It's become an absolute haven for wildlife. The weed is great cover for tadpoles and newts, and all around it looks great. It's a wonderful water lily, but undoubtedly the central feature is this incredible island with the hazel behind. The bench stretches all the way around, the little deck, the little platform, and you can sit here for a whole afternoon, while the time away, and just watch the wildlife come and go and develop. What a perfect way to really make use of a beautiful pond. Obviously the planting is young around this pond, but there's a good selection of water mints, irises, loosestrife and some sedges and so on. But what's really interesting is the planting just behind it. All these hardy geraniums, they're going to nudge up to the water's edge plants and create that really important edge effect whereby the wildlife is protected and the pond is also protected from view. At the moment, it all looks rather bare. Looks rather bare, but in time it'll fill up. And it's really, but in time it'll fill up. And it's really nice to have a pond that has a sort of secretive
a secretive atmosphere about it, so you can't see all.
Find the halfway mark and mark
Yes,
with a
of
nail.
course, that planting will help the liner and so on, but it's really nice to have rich, ebullient planting around the pond. Very
Repeat this
important.
process at the
Wow.
other end of the room. String a chalk line between the two nails and mark the centre line of the room.
What's really nice about this pond is when you approach this area of the garden from the house across the lawn, you would never know it was here.
Yes.
Awkward cuts around the outside of the room. Floor tiles are generally thicker than wall tiles and are more difficult to cut.
Therefore, you need to avoid cutting narrow slithers of floor tiles.
Lawn, classic, great.
Whereas wall tile
Adhesive is usually pre-mixed. Floor tile adhesive generally comes in powder form and needs to be mixed with water. Follow
Classic.
the maker's
You might want
instructions.
a bigger edge plant like a gunnerer, great. And
Spread the adhesive from the center line towards the outside walls.
Only attempt to lay a small area at any one time.
Make sure the tiles are firmly bedded into the adhesion. Continue to lay down along the center line, spacing as required.
classic. You might want a bigger edge plant like a gunnerer. Great. Classic. Great.
Always make sure you have a good quantity of tiles and spacers to hand.
Further adhesive. Further
You might want a bigger edge plant like a gunner, great. And also everybody's favourite classic. You might want a bigger edge plant like a gunner. Big spiky stems, huge great leaves. But there's a wealth to choose from. It's just a handful we picked out. And also everybody's favourite, the hosta. Now, one of the reasons that these plants are so good as edge plants is that they cover up the edge of the pond. And the chances are you're going to have a liner of some description, or even a plastic pond outline itself. Not attractive, you can cover it with pebbles, but it's much better to cover it with plants if you can. What these both do is they cover the area. Lovely, wide, spreading foliage. Together, beautiful, smooth and crinkled, creating a lovely edge of pond effect.
We are lucky enough to have a pond, but if you don't, then you'll have to dig. After that, to hold on to the water, it'll either need a liner or a mould.
Now, in the old days, ponds were made watertight by smearing them underneath and the sides with clay. And then it was allowed to dry in the sun and was smeared again. And that way, ponds became completely watertight. Now, today, we have the delights of plastic mould, which is unusual, but the good thing about it is they come in all shapes and sizes.
Adhesive, and lay tiles from the centre line to the outside walls as before. That is now the messy enough, so ask a tile ask Elna. Where's the issue of the goats? That is now the messy enough, so ask. That is now the messy enough, so ask Elna. And lay tiles from the centre line to the outside walls as before. To the outside walls as before. To the outside walls as before. All that is to the outside walls as before. All that is to the outside walls as before. All that is to the outside walls as before. All that is to the outside walls as before. All that is to the outside walls as before. All that is to the outside walls as before. All that is to the outside walls as before. All that is to the outside walls as before. Cut the perimeter tiles with the tile cutting machine and lay. Here there's enough room to ease the tiles underneath the skirting wall. This does make the finished floor look much neater. As with wall tiling, wipe over the damp sponge to remove any excess adhesive. Once you've completed laying the tiles from the center line to one outside wall, lay tiles from the center line to the other outside wall. Where perimeter tiles are the same size, from a full tile, cut both sides if the section to be used is less than half the width of a full tile.
See how a steam engine works. Just by looking at it, you can kind of tell, okay, well that pushes on that. And I just became fascinated. I mean, they really are like beasts, and I think this fascination seems to be somewhat ingrained in people. The fact that their popularity has led to the heritage railway movement that we have today is just testament to that.
The challenges today are really the support for the engine.
Choose the color that matches your tiles. Apply the grout in small quantities. It's not warm, snip with the grout in small quantities. It's not warm, snip with the grout in small quantities. It's not warm, snip with the grout in small quantities. It's not warm, snip with the grout in small quantities. It's not warm, snip with the grout in small quantities. It's not warm, snip with the grout in small quantities. It's not quantities. It's not quantities. It's not warm, snip with the grout in small quantities. It's not 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 warm, snip with the grout in small quantities. The grout in small quantities. The grout in small quantities. Make sure all the joints are filled. Wipe off any excess with a damp sponge and buff it up with a lint-free cloth. Wipe off any excess with a damp sponge and buff it up with a lint-free cloth. over-tiling. It's not necessary. Over-tiling. It's not necessary to strip all tiles off if you decide to revamp your kitchen or bathroom. Simply decrease the ground in small quantities. The ground quantities.
From a pint-sized, blood-sucking vampire to a voluptuous damsel in distress, the amazingly versatile actress has grown up before our eyes, up on the silver screen. Kirsten was born on April 30th, 1982 in Point Pleasant, New Jersey. Mother Inez, an artist, and father Klaus, a German medical services executive, recognized the potential of their adorable little girl early on. By the time Kirsten's little brother Christian was born in 1987, Inez had already started her daughter out as a Ford model. Kirsten barely remembers a time before she was in front of the cameras.
Well, since she was 3, well, I've done New York Stories with Woody Allen, Mia Farrow, and Gone for the Vanities, and lots of commercials. And Saturday Night Live and David Letterman and Sisters and Loving and lots of different things.
For a young person who is active in a career, there is the benefit of spending a lot of time with adults. And that can really bring a lot of maturity. But there's a downside. The pressure of a career can also be shattering for a young ego. The constant rejection and the pressure to succeed professionally can be very difficult for the young person who is seeking acceptance for who they really are.
After the New York Stories shoot, Inez separated from Klaus and moved the kids to the West Coast in order that Kirsten will be able hockey. Yeah, in the war because he was such a great goalie, and he still considers hockey to be a really good metaphor for life.
Get to play, and through that, I guess, the dynamics of behavior, of discovering yourself, of discovering others, you know, culturally and behaviorally. You know, it's an environment where you learn and hopefully can be fostered and prosper as a person.
It all started with his great-grandfather, Coppola, who lived above and owned a movie theater during the 1920s. He imported movies from Italy for the Italian immigrants in the neighborhood. The next generation brought Nicholas's grandfather, who was an Oscar-winning musical score composer. After that came famous Uncle Francis and then his daughter, Sophia, both Oscar-winning directors. But for Nicholas, it's not just a case of working in the family business. With one Oscar already under his belt, this actor's talent runs so deep that he can play any genre, any time period, any character, and succeed.
I have scripts that come to me that are from across the board. They're comedies and actioners and dramatic films, and that's really where I wanted to be. I wanted to have the luxury, because I'm kind of a complicated guy.
On January the 7th, 1964, Joy Vogelsang and August Coppola welcomed their third son into the world. In Long Beach, California, Joy was a celebrated dancer and choreographer, while August was a comparative literature professor who also taught film. Nicholas actually compared his father to legendary screen actor Sean Connery.
I grew up with my father, who's a man who's very intimidating to be around, because he has that sort of larger-than-life presence, like he's going to start conducting Beethoven at any minute, and he looks like Sean.
Unfortunately, Nicholas's parents divorced when he was 12. His mother Joy was a very creative woman. She was also depressive and found herself in and out of hospital, leaving Nick plenty of time to be on his own. He took refuge in his collection of comic book heroes and movies.
I think whenever the family structure does not provide a lot of care for a young person, the young person is going to find a way to see, perform, going into a fantasy world, comic books, movies where the hero wins, the villain is punished. Very safe place for the young person to find nurturing and soothing.
You know, I loved movies. I was trying to find a way into a TV set when I was 6 years old, and then when I was 14, I discovered James Dean, and that really made it clear to me that this was something, you know, that could really move people.
As a teenager, he already found his calling. During his 50s, enrolled with San Francisco's American Conservative.
The film was such a huge commercial success that it spawned a sequel, and it led Keanu straight into his next hit role as a super cop in the surfing thriller Point Break. That was another enormous success. However, it led to a kind of dichotomy for the actor. Because
his Uncle Francis out with the auditions.
Image. It's a strange really, because Keanu was so successful.
This time, pure luck, no nepotism involved. What happened was a casting agent was considering the part of the punk rocker Randy in the film, and she stumbled upon Nick Cage's picture and thought, this is the guy for the job. He landed the role, and there was no looking back. It was his big break. No longer wanting to ride on the coattails of his family name, officially he changed his name to Cage.
Acting for me has kept me balanced. I've acted because you know, I need survival. It channeled a lot of stuff, you know, that I had as a young man.
In 1986, Uncle Francis called upon his talented nephew again for the comedy period whose Peggy Sue got married. Coppola had to defend the decision to cast his considerable attention for the young actor. Particularly from singer-actress Cher, who persuaded producers to cast him opposite her in the hit comedy Moonstruck.
Okay, Moonstruck. Scary, fun. Okay. Moonstruck. Scary. Scary. Fun. Moonstruck. Okay, Moonstruck. Scary.
Fun.
Exploring.
Moonstruck certainly was my sort of introduction into the romantic.
The film was a smash hit. Nicholas won a Golden Globe and Cher won the Oscar that year.
The unique actor also caught the attention of the talented directors, the Coen brothers, who decided to cast him as a very quirky character. Cast him as a very quirky character. 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 In the comedy Raising Arizona.
I mean, I thought he was a wild child. He's very soothing to be around. He's very quiet, so that made me be all over the place. So I was pretty much the clown, and he was sort of the keeper of the calm. He's very sweet, very good person.